Quadeca. Quadeca won. But yeah, it's pretty obvious to say Quadeca won the first round here. He's the more talented rapper in this situation, and it's not even close. But today we're going to be talking about why that is. Now, I've got a little bit of a cold today, so sorry if my accent annoys some people more than usual. It's unlucky, but it is what it is. So I'll be reviewing both diss tracks, saying what I liked about both of them and what I disliked about both of them, and taking an in-depth look at the lyrical content for both. So this is CDTV Productions. You can of course follow me on Twitter. We're still on that quest to hit 10k before the end of the year. And let's jump right into looking at these diss tracks.
Quadeca on the playlist, more than KSI. Yeah, JJ shooting shots like an AK, but he made waves being lonely with a rape face.
So we're going to start off with talking about how this track actually sounds before we dive into the lyrics. And in terms of its sound, this is easily up there as one of the best YouTube diss tracks in my opinion. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of YouTube diss tracks that sound that good, but this is one of the few that still stands out on its own, purely taken as a regular song. Not even just as a diss track, as a regular song, this sounds really good. I love how it's structured, with it being split up into different segments. This shows Quadeca can show off a little versatility in his music, starting off with this very mellow singing part, before transitioning into a rapping segment. Then we have some catchy autotune parts laced throughout it, and of course, a really great beat switch as well. Speaking of that beat switch though, that does bring me to one of my criticisms about how the track sounds, and that is that the second beat is miles better than the first one. Not to mention, it's more fitting for the tone of a diss track. The first beat isn't bad at all, but it's got a very light-hearted sound to it.
Hey, JJ, I'm so sorry you're angry. Hairline so fucked up, your barber is take heat.
And while this is fun, the second beat has a lot more punch to it.
Yeah, you ride waves, can't get out of the water. Can't buy a good song for $1. I ain't never been the type to just follow.
And just personally, I prefer that darker trap style sound when it comes to diss tracks. But other than that, the flows are really fluid, the delivery is pretty solid across the whole thing, and overall it just makes for a very good sounding song. And I'm pretty sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that Quadeca is pretty experienced with making music, unlike quite a lot of other people that make diss tracks on this platform. So now that we've talked about how the track was sonically, let's take a look at some of the disses and the lyrics on this. And again, lyrically, this is a very solid diss. Definitely not something that's gonna end KSI's career, but then again, not every diss track has to come out with no career-ending information. I'm gonna start with my criticisms here first, because I don't have too many significant issues with how the song is written. While I do think it's mostly good, there were a few bars that I personally felt were lacking or came off as a little standard and not super creative, such as,
they torture people with your music out in North Korea. Make you turn blue in the face just like you Squidward. Had to point the finger like when old folks type in.
Not horrendous lines by any means, I just felt like they were a little bit basic. A slightly bigger issue is I feel like there could have been just a little bit more variation in the things that he disses KSI for in the first verse and the things he disses him for in the second one. It's not a huge issue honestly, but I just feel like a lot of the stuff said in the second verse was the same stuff he'd already said before, just worded a little bit differently.
You were 18 and a virgin in the basement making rape faces. Everybody made waves being lonely with a rape face. Let's take it back to the past, when you made a vid and people would actually laugh at how you react to the past instead of how bad you could rap. Put that on mic and pick up the Elgato. But all your friends fucking with me way more heavy than you. The side man, they ain't even on your side. The side man, what's the reason it would lie? Quadeca on the playlist, more than KSI.
And finally, he accuses KSI of using a ghostwriter here, and the bars are really nicely constructed, but according to KSI, it's not true. So if that is the case, then I can't really credit those lines as good disses. If he does use a ghostwriter, they're very good lines. If he doesn't, they're not good lines, because if it's not true, then it's not a good diss. Plus, I mean, look at some of KSI's bars. If he has a ghostwriter, then he made a horrible investment. Apart from that, I feel like everything else on here was done really nicely from a lyrical aspect. It's got a lot of currently relevant lyrics which reference a lot of YouTube culture, which is very fitting for this track, such as the whole Logan Paul suicide forest scandal, and mentioning multiple other YouTube personalities. And of course, it's got a lot of well put together disses against KSI with some entertaining wordplay sprinkled throughout. The disses at his hairline are pretty funny, the one about him always wearing a bandana in particular, because if you look at his Instagram, it's true. KSI didn't really help himself here either by also wearing a bandana in his response to this track. He also criticizes KSI's music quality, which is very fair in my opinion, considering it's not really that good, and takes shots at aspects of his personality, with a lot of lines targeting his overinflated ego. He also has a little bit of an 8 Mile moment where he predicts what KSI is going to diss him for, and this is pretty effective because it basically preemptively disarms those disses for KSI. If KSI disses Quadeca for any of those things now, it's not going to hit hard at all. I'm dying. As a whole, while I do have some small criticisms about how the track was written, it was still insanely well done. And if you combine that with the fact that the track sounds great on its own, it makes for a brilliant diss overall. So, now we've looked at Insecure, did KSI come back with a response that matched up to the quality of this one?
Eric's looking down on the boy, feeling like he had a talk. Now you better listen, cause this nigga never wanted Hippodrome, but
Of course he didn't. This is nowhere near as good as Quadeca's track. But let's start out with how it sounds, just like we did with Insecure. So, sonically, I easily prefer Quadeca's track, mainly because I'm not a huge fan of UK rap and UK accents in rap, that's just a personal preference. But this is definitely one of the KSI songs that I find to be very listenable. It has a fairly eerie sound to it instrumentally, and the beat goes pretty hard, and honestly KSI's deep voice meshes quite well with this sound. His flows are slower and more calculated on here, and overall it does help give this confident vibe to the track. So while I did prefer how Insecure sounded, this track is still not bad at all if we're looking at it sonically. But if we're looking at it lyrically, this is a train wreck. Now, only the first half of this diss track is targeted at Quadeca, the second half is aimed at Dax, which isn't even in the title for some reason. But yeah, we're only gonna focus on the part that's targeted at Quadeca here. I guess we'll start with what I like in the lyrics, because there isn't a whole lot. I guess the diss about Quadeca's breakup with his ex was pretty personal and kinda hard-hitting. It's one of the only lines on the track that really elicited some kind of surprised reaction from me. And there's like one or two semi-decent bits of wordplay here and there, with a couple of decent rhyme schemes at sections of the track, but other than that, there's not much else I could compliment here. This is mostly pretty awful lyrically. I'm not exaggerating when I say that, it really is just badly written. First of all, let's just get it out of the way that KSI uses a lyrical miracle rhyme scheme at one point on this track, which is literally a meme because it's a rhyme scheme that every single beginner rapper uses at some point in their life.
I'm a spiritual, lyrical, individual, spiritual, miracle, lyrical, individual, spiritual, miracle.
The last thing you want to do on a diss track is showcase amateur songwriting. But a basic rhyme scheme is nowhere even close to the biggest issue with this song. No, the biggest issue is that this does what every badly written diss track does, and it proves the points that the other person made in their diss track. Quadeca pretty much called KSI a delusional egomaniac and insecure. So how did KSI respond to that? Of course, he responded by saying he is Quadeca's idol, refuses to believe that it's possible that Quadeca might have stopped watching KSI's godly content in the past few years, and he quite literally compares himself to an actual god. Oh, also, you know the whole 8 Mile thing that Quadeca did on his diss track? And how I said that would completely take away any impact if KSI tried to use any of those insults against him now? Well,
I'm small, I'm skinny.
Corny with your size, baby, try some weight lifting.
I got a lift.
Why you trying to say the word, something succotash?
I'm awkward.
Baby, panicking, awkward like mannequin.
you literally, word for word, dissed him in the exact way that he predicted you would. It was such a terrible and honestly kind of lazy idea to put those lines into the track when they've already been deflected. There's also this line where he disses Quadeca for not being old enough to legally drink. That's a diss apparently. Now this next thing I'm gonna mention, it doesn't even really have anything to do with the lyrics, but it's just something I noticed on the music video that was so dumb I just had to bring it up somewhere. It happens when KSI mentions him being Quadeca's idol. He brings up a tweet in the music video where Quadeca said he wanted to collaborate with KSI. in 2015. You know, that's 3 years ago, right? And Quadeca is 18 now, so he was like 15 when he wrote that tweet. Do I really need to explain that your mind state, what you enjoy, and who you enjoy watching on YouTube changes between the ages of 15 and 18? It's a bit nitpicky, I know, but it's just such a dumb tweet to put in there and only goes to further prove that KSI is a huge raging egomaniac. And the other tweet is just about the whole boxing match thing being entertaining. That doesn't mean he loves your content. I don't think I need to say much more. This track completely misses the point, doesn't have any creative insults directed at Quadeca, and it pretty much just goes to show how high KSI's opinion is of himself and his music. A fairly good sounding track, but a terribly written one. So in conclusion, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Insecure easily takes the W on this one, and it's not even a competition. It had more layers to it, was constructed a bit better, easily had the better disses out of the two tracks, and just overall was a better song. I don't know if we're going to get a second round of diss tracks out of this, but if we do, I hope that KSI either steps it up, or maybe looks into that ghostwriter Quadeca was talking about, because he might need it. Well, that is going to be it for the video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and let me know down in the comments below who you think won this beef, which track do you think was better, and why. I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say. It's pretty fun to talk about, you know, YouTube beef and YouTube rap every once in a while. So, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys all in the next one, and this is your boy, CDTV Productions, signing out.